The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Welcome, everyone, to the Fed15 podcast, presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we discuss the latest news info that feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. So whether you are a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, Fed15's got you covered. So grab your coffee, your energy drink, your green juice, whatever you need to get your motor running and head on down the highway. And we will tell you what you need to know but might have missed. We're your host. I'm Dan Sipe, and I am joined by the incomparable and the inimitable Katelyn Murray.
Every time you say inimitable, Dan, I think inevitable, the inevitable Katelyn Murray, which I kind of like. It is inevitable.
You and Thanos are inevitable.
For better or for worse, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Awesome. Well, I hear that you had a fabulous time last week without me.
No. We missed you. And, it's nice to know I'd rank a somewhat distant second to painting a room.
Yeah. I did do a lot of painting. And I have been impressing a couple of people on our team with my ability to do my cut-ins freehand. I do not tape anything. I also don't use any drop cloths, but that is less of a choice and more of...
That's devil magic right there.
I don't. I'm a very neat painter, which is...
I see that.
And I'm a very messy cook, so those don't really line up.
Got it. So drop cloth in the kitchen, not for painting.
Yes. Yeah, that's the idea.
Gotcha.
Very cool.
Well, I've pretty much spent this whole week all at Twitter because, the regular listeners, viewers know we're a track and field family. So this week we wrap up the Olympic trials for track and field. And a 16-year-old 400-meter runner that broke the under-18 world record twice. It looks like he might make the team in a relay. 16 years old. It's freaking amazing. We're one of the only countries that does a meritocracy. So we have these grueling trials, and we do have some people who were favored in their events that had a bad outcome and are not getting through. But that means other people's opportunity to step up. So that's pretty exciting. And then, Katelyn, you know this, not sure a lot of people know this, but I am an irretrievable geek for the Tour de France,
yes,
which starts tomorrow and is starting in Florence. That's going to be super exciting. I'll be recording that, so I'm not going to be watching it bleary-eyed at weird hours. But for the people who get mad at me for always talking, sports, I have something for you too, because I'm also a geek for the Got Talent shows.
Like America's Got Talent.
But lately, so I've got two things for our listeners, viewers to Google. I promise you will not be disappointed. So the first, and this is Britain's Got Talent. So Britain's Got Talent, Batman opera defying gravity. Google that. And then
wait. Because this is real. Batman?
Yes.
Opera. Defying
gravity.
Okay.
Britain's
I will
Got
Google
Talent.
that.
Yes. And the second one is ventriloquist opera sheep.
Ventriloquist opera sheep. I'm so intrigued.
Okay. W running back, Katelyn, if you don't like it.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple of really fun, great auditions. I love these things. The thing I love most about the Got Talent shows are just the surprise things where it's like, okay, did not see that coming, and, that's what gave us Terry Fader. And he's the singing ventriloquist that got the long-standing gig out in Vegas. His puppets would do impressions of other famous singers. We don't have the Ed Sullivan Show anymore.
Yeah.
For people like that to pop up on it. So I think I covered everybody here.
Yeah. That was a very equal opportunity opener. Yeah. There's something for everybody there.
Yes.
I can't wait for a Batman opera. I'm very
you just gotta see it.
I'm very excited. That is definitely going to be Googled shortly.
Yep.
All right. Well,
now you got something pretty cool for us. A great article that you wrote. Tell us about it.
Yes. Speaking of something for everyone, I think one of the articles that we put up this week, it was written by me. I do think that this is an article that is applicable to almost everybody who's listening to this podcast. Obviously, we have articles that focus, we love our special provisions folks. We focus in a lot there. We get kind of into the weeds in a way, I think, with different pieces that are applicable to certain types of feds.
Sure.
But this one is truly a generalist article. So I would encourage everybody to go check it out. It's on investing for feds. So really kind of top level, what are the key concerns that you need to be thinking of when you're looking at structuring your investment portfolio? And that could include allocating your TSP. It can also include, figuring out you've got some extra cash that's just sitting in a bank account, it's earning nothing, or, maybe it's in a low yielding CD and you need to kind of get it into the market. Really any kind of investment. These are the things that you need to kind of be thinking about. And the first one really is general health status. That's going to be first and foremost where you want to start, because your health, your current health, your future predicted health, your longevity is really going to be key when it comes to figuring out how your money should be invested. I think if you know that you have some potential medical expenses that are down the road, factoring that in, maybe looking at a more conservative investment strategy that allows you to set assets aside for that and an investment that's safe. Also making a decision on Social Security timing. This is a big question that we get all the time from feds. There are a couple different options for when you can start collecting Social Security. And health is one of the number one deciding factors there on collecting at 62 versus 70. I will repeat, do not start collecting Social Security at age 62 just because that's when your supplement runs out. That's not a good enough reason. You can do that, but there's a couple different factors that you need to take into account first to make sure that is the best option for you. Another big one is retirement goals. And that kind of seems like a no-brainer, but it is really important when we're looking at allocating a portfolio. What are your goals around retirement? What are your goals around spending?
Sure.
What are your goals around how long you're going to be retired? I think oftentimes we see folks who go a little bit too conservative too early, and that's particularly of concern when we have feds who are retiring a little earlier. If they're retiring at 57 in MRA, you got a long time that your assets are going to have to kind of support you there. So definitely taking that into account. And then by that same token, on the opposite side of the coin, if you have 10, 15, 20, 25 years till retirement, you probably want to consider being a little bit more aggressive in your portfolio because you have the benefit of time, notwithstanding other factors, of course. And then, obviously, a lot of times folks will get, and Dan, I know you see it a million times here at Serving Those Who Serve, but folks will get really close to retirement. They'll get a year out and they'll want to go really, really, really conservative because they're thinking of that retirement as a finish line as opposed to what it actually is, which, is just a station on the way, a water fill-up station in your investing journey. In all of our years of doing this, we have never met a Fed who says, I only want to be retired 1 year. I'm only planning to be retired 1 year, right? So you can't pull everything out of the market just because you're retiring, because the money that is appreciating in your 60s and 70s is going to be the money that you're living off of in your 80s and 90s. So definitely something to consider there. Also, risk. A huge factor when it comes to figuring out your investment allocation. And particularly when folks that we talk with are thinking about risk, oftentimes they're really focused on risk tolerance. But really risk has two different capacities, right? when we think about risk, there's risk tolerance and there's risk capacity. There's two different sort of factors there. Risk tolerance is probably what you think of when I say the word risk. You know, if I invest my portfolio in 100% equities, if I'm speculating in the market, I've got crazy volatility and I'm up at night awake, not sleeping, right? Because I can't handle the risk in the portfolio. The way that financial advisors think about risk, obviously risk tolerance, huge factor, but there's also risk capacity. So if I am retiring at 57, right, and I want to spend $10,000 a month in retirement, and I've got longevity, right, I'm living off that money for maybe 40 years, and I want to be in 100% treasury bills, I have to have a whole lot of money to make that work, right?
Absolutely.
Depending, of course, on what my pension is, depending on what my Social Security benefit looks like, all of that. So risk capacity is really defined as the level of risk that is needed for portfolio growth to meet your goals.
Right.
And really what you want to do is kind of look at the risk tolerance, right? What your risk tolerance level is. How much volatility can you stomach before you're up at night not sleeping? Because we don't want that for anybody. But then also risk capacity. Based on my goals, how do I need to be invested? What sort of growth do I need to have in my portfolio to meet those goals? And really finding a place where we can bring the two together and find a comfortable balance there is certainly one of the things that we try to help our clients with here at Serving Those Who Serve. Obviously, in order to evaluate risk, it can be something very difficult to do solo. So I always recommend talking with a professional to kind of balance those factors effectively.
Sure.
Couple other things we want to keep in mind, tax planning considerations. We want to make sure that we are allocating assets appropriately to kind of be most efficient with taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes than they have to. Couple examples, looking at assets that appreciate. So your big growers, keeping those in a Roth IRA because growth in a Roth IRA is tax-free. It just makes sense. Looking at putting dividend-paying investments in a traditional IRA or a vehicle like that because you're not paying income tax on those dividends when they're being received. If I am losing you here, I recommend go and check out the article, give it a read, talk with a professional about asset allocation and learn a lot more there. I think there's a lot of tax dollars that are given up with improper asset location strategy. And then lastly, we want to be thinking about estate planning. We want to be planning for wealth transfer. We talk about this a lot. I am very, very big on multi-generational financial planning. I think that planning is something that should involve the entire family, whether that's directly or indirectly, kind of managing for their benefit, but figuring out the different implications of different types of accounts and how those transfer to non-spouses, and then obviously optimizing your beneficiary designations for tax efficiency in the event of a wealth transfer. So highly, highly recommend checking out that article. It's a good global overview to figure out maybe what you don't know about investment allocation, and definitely recommend consulting with a financial professional before doing any sort of reallocating, before implementing any sort of suggestions. All of this stuff is highly, highly personalized, and the context is pivotal. So if you want help with that, if you don't know a financial professional and you want to talk with somebody, the team here at Serving Those Who Serve is always here for Feds. So you can email us at askstws@stwserve to get that help. We'd be happy to talk with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And our second article really follows yours pretty well. And that is, folks, I don't think we ever get the COLAs or the pay raises that we want, when they come along. But you kind of don't have to just accept that as an outcome. Mm-hmm. So I'll direct you to the article. We kind of open with a lot of geeky stuff where we talk about Bureau of Labor Statistics and how the CPI is calculated and that type of thing. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that right now. But one of the things that I think most Feds know, if you're a FERS Fed, you know that your COLAs in retirement frequently are going to be consumer price index -1. So it's like, wow, I'm not keeping up. Well, here's the thing. That may be the case with salaries and pensions, but to dovetail off of what Katelyn covered, you do have a not secret weapon in your TSP. And this is a drum that we beat over and over and over again because it is that important. Now, to be clear, there are legislative efforts in place to make sure that COLAs are more equal between the branches of services. Senator Alex Padilla and our good friend Jerry Connolly are both working on that. So applause to that. But you need to plan for inflation resistance. You need to fight it. You need to have a plan to resist. And that's where your TSP is going to come in while you're working and once you're retired. So we've got 5 bullet points for you here. Write these down. So the strategies are 1, maximize contributions. 2, establish a long-term growth-oriented asset allocation while you're working. Periodically review and rebalance. Avoid reactionary changes based on short-term events. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And number 5, when in doubt, reread the first 4 rules.
Okay. I like that one.
Yes. When you get to retirement, then we'll be talking about setting up the allocation for a drawdown, but you're still going to need it to grow. You are going to need it to outperform inflation, not just keep up. You need it to outperform, and you need to strategically approach it that way. Okay. I've been doing this for close to 40 years, and the people who do that have the better, more comfortable retirements. Just happens again and again and again. And here's some things, Katelyn. In 2023, and this was published as a great stat, yay, 86.8% of federal employees contributed at least 5% to FERS to be able to get the match. That means 13% didn't. So, no, this needs to be 100%.
Yeah.
And then ratchet it up, ratchet it up, ratchet it up. You need to be thinking in terms of maximizing your TSP. And so if you don't know what those maximum limits are, here they come. Base contributions, 23,000, catch up 7,500 if you're over 50. Okay. So take a look. If you're not there, we're coming up to July. It's a good time for a summer spot check on that. We'll have an article about that as well.
For sure. It's interesting that 13%, Dan, that you're 13% that aren't contributing up to the full match. If you think about that in terms of if somebody pulled up outside your office in a truck and they were giving away free money.
Yes.
How many of your fellow colleagues do you think would go get in line for free money? That would be 100%.
Yes.
So I think a lot of the reason that we're not seeing these contributions is people just don't know. And that's why we here at Serving Those Who Serve, we are always boosting that signal. We have a couple articles coming out, as Dan mentioned, on that on the blog. So if you know somebody who's not contributing enough to get the full max, or if you think that there might be, or the full match at least, or somebody who's not
share this video,
we will have, share this podcast, share our articles. Knowledge is power for sure.
Yep. So in conclusion, have a strong TSP strategy. Don't pin your hopes on a COLA. Tackle inflation proactively. You have the ability to do that. You can take charge. And that's, if you take nothing away from all of our podcasts, take this one away. If you share none of our podcasts, share this one. Because this can change people's retirement lives. Yep.
Absolutely, Dan. Well, I appreciate that overview. I think is really, really important. Definitely second the message to share this episode. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. And that is all the time that we have for today, folks. But you know that we will be back next week to bring you all the latest updates that you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
And be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And again, please, please, please remember to share it with friends and colleagues.
Absolutely. Now, for more information on the topics that we covered in today's show and more, definitely check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. We've got a bunch of great writers here who are putting quality content out there. It's vetted. It's stuff that you can trust. So definitely recommend checking that out. And while you're there, you can subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, to get all the latest news for Feds delivered straight to your inbox every week.
Indeed. And do not forget our complimentary webinars. Okay. Each and every week, be sure, go to our website, STWServe.com. There is a great list. We got a ton in February. I think we got 12 or 13 that we're doing. Katelyn, how do we find the time for this?
Yeah, it's wild. We make the time, Dan.
We do.
We make it. It's important.
We do indeed.
So we have a couple good ones coming up just to kind of call a couple out based on what we talked about today. Yep. We've got tax planning coming up on July 11th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then we've got TSP planning coming up. If you're listening to, match, maxing, investment allocations, all of this, and you're trying to find heads or tails, this would be a really great place to start our TSP planning webinar on July 18th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And as Dan pointed out, these are complimentary. So you don't have to pay anything. There's no barrier to entry there. Of course, if you do prefer a one-on-one approach, if you're looking for somebody to provide sustained, comprehensive financial planning and investment management support, feel free to reach out to our team directly for a financial planning consultation at askstws@stwserve.com, and we'd be happy to help you with that. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the Fed15. If this is your first episode with us, I really hope you'll come back next week for another dose of the old Katelyn and Dan duo. I am Katelyn Murray.
And I'm Dan Sipe.
And we will see you all next week. Be well.